alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a returning guest. Please welcome H M Gooden to the show.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Heather. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the books you write? Because even though you're a returning guest, the show keeps growing.
Yeah, sure. Well, I write under the name H M Gooden, and that basically is my name, just my first initials, Heather Marie, as pretty much every girl born in the 70s or 80s might have for their middle name. And then Gooden is my last name. And I mainly write young adult fiction, paranormal, and fantasy. But I have, with my original series, I really had a hard time letting go of the characters. So I think by the time I finish it, they are early 20s. I guess that puts it more in the new adult category, but that's what happens when you create your own little family.
And they just keep growing, and they just keep getting older.
And they keep growing and getting older and having children, and yeah.
Oh, are you one of those authors who's going to do the thing where you then start a story with their kids, or is that off limits for you?
It is very possibly something that will be happening shortly. Yeah, I have a trilogy that's written, covers purchased, and needs to be edited, and that hopefully will be coming out in the next year.
Nice.
I have about 8 completed first drafts of different books, so I'm not quite sure on the timeframes of anything yet.
Wow, that sounds productive. Do you have you have 8 done, 8 rough drafts done that aren't edited yet, right? Is what you're saying?
Yes.
And
yes.
How long did it take you to create all of those?
I write about a book a month.
Nice.
I
would appreciate
on
that.
average, and that is through the magic of dictation, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the magic of dictation does not actually find you time to do the edits.
Absolutely. I discovered that recently.
Yeah, it's a very painful discovery because you're like, okay, now I'm done with this story and I'm going to write the next. Oh, wait, I've got all of these other ones that would like me to finish them.
Yeah.
Yeah. My solution has created another problem.
So it's exactly like mine. I'm becoming a bit bigger advocate for dictation lately. And my first book I've actually dictated is going to come out. It'll just come out when this episode drops. And that's Demon Scroll. It's my first big epic fantasy book. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to do a giant epic fantasy book. It didn't turn out to be quite as giant as I thought it was going to be initially. But I'm not going to get a big book out there in time if I don't do something different. And so I stopped writing by typing, and I started dictating really seriously. And I'd experimented with it in the past, but man, it blew up at this time. It was great. Though there's so much redundancy. It's like, that's why the last 2 chapters, like, wow, I'm cutting words over words here.
Oh, yeah. But it's just getting that first draft out, right?
Yes, absolutely. Having that done is a real relief, actually. Because, then all that's left is the editing.
Exactly. Which
Even
is the hardest.
The bigger part. Yeah, exactly. So you have all these rough drafts and not enough time to edit them. But yeah, that's quite a predicament. I mean, I went years. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question eventually. So just have faith. But I wanted to say that I went years without it before I really edited any books, which is kind of funny. Because I wrote a bunch of books when I was a teenager, and I wrote 5 or 6 books before I graduated from college total. Mm-hmm. And maybe more than that, actually, maybe more like 7 or 8. And I didn't really edit any of them seriously until I didn't really edit any of those seriously until I graduated from college, and a few years later, then I went back and edited one of them, which got turned into a series of novellas. But I guess my question is, do you find that books kind of get stale if you leave them sit too long? Or have you not noticed that?
You know what? I actually noticed that I think there is a sweet spot to let a book sit. And I mean, I think I read Stephen King puts the book away for like 6 weeks or something before he'll even look at it again. And I mean, I wish it was only 6 weeks, but I'm currently, I just finished editing a book now, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I actually wrote it last August by dictation. That's how far behind I am.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And it was kind of like running into an old friend, and they were like almost exactly like you remembered, but like there was a few things you wanted to change about them. And then they'd be perfect for your life right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So I actually I was like, oh yeah, I remember this happened. And then I was able to, I think I added like 5,000 or 6,000 words. And that was just sort of the copy that I sent to the editor. So I'm just waiting for them to do the edits on it. And then I'll get it back and clean it up. And then I'll send it to my beta readers and see what they think.
Okay, so the life cycle is kind of a long. You've kind of got a long wait for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say it took me about 3 weeks to actually do the edits. I've had like quite a few other products in between, and then depending on how many edits and corrections she has for me, probably a few more weeks. And then usually I find I take a day or two to go through what the beta readers say. And then after I've done that, I usually like to get about 5 beta readers if I can. And then I'll send it back to the proof editor, and then I will consider it sort of ready.
Okay, so you do a pretty thorough process when it comes to the editing, compared to me at least. I mean, I know writers really aren't supposed to admit this kind of thing, but I don't do that much editing, and I don't use beta readers anymore. I did for a while, but they consumed a lot of my time when I did.
They can, and I think that's why it's really important to get a few that you like really like. 2 of the ones that I use, I read everything they write.
Okay.
Because they're other writers, and I love reading their stuff. So I always find typos can get away from you, even though I edit things like at least 5 or 6 times before I ever publish it. There's always more typos. So they help catch those. And then they also point out things like, oh, this doesn't sound like something they would say, or who said this, or this doesn't fit. So, I want the best product that I can have out there, because like the whole not being able to let go, it's kind of like sending your kids off with, poor social skills for me. Like I want them to succeed and have other kids like them.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. And honestly, with a book, it also makes sense. Because, if people get hung up on little details that keep them from enjoying the rest of the story, from really enjoying and diving into the story, then boom, you have a problem.
Exactly. I want people to enjoy the books as much as I do.
That's a good goal, honestly. I can't disagree with that. Especially because now I got you. So are you one of those writers who really enjoys their own books? I mean, that's kind of the implication.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I know it's maybe not cool to admit it, but I'm really, really writing them for me. And there's always that peer pressure part. And I think that's probably why it's so important for me that other people enjoy them. But if I know that my book gave somebody entertainment, I'm not writing great literature. I don't want to. I just read a very highly ranked book yesterday, and it was very good. And I'm so depressed today, and that's why I don't read that. I want happy endings with magic, and I don't want 50-year-olds dying with dementia. Like, that's just really depressing.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah. I use that word brutal as an avid metalhead, so there you go. I mean, that's my word. That's our word, I should say. But but that's dark stories, and they can get me down as well. Honestly, I can still remember certain stories, even stories I didn't really think were particularly good. It still stuck with me just because of the amount of darkness in them, the amount of nasty stuff that happened.
Yeah, and it's funny how darkness doesn't necessarily have to be violent or about death or anything. Like there's just some things that leave you down, whether it's just somebody being bullied or whatever. So I guess that's part of why I like it when my characters kind of overcome that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like we actually write stories that have some similarities, because even though I don't write young adult books much for the most part, or new adult books, I guess you could, I mean, like a lot of epic fantasies, my recent book has some quite young characters in it, but it's a much more of an adult story in a lot of ways. What I'm trying to say is, I think writing stories for characters are going to fail at something is kind of difficult for me. Like,
it's so hard.
One of the stories they fail is extremely difficult. That's probably why it's so valorized in like literature, where the story's about somebody losing in the end. And I find that kind of story really intriguing a lot of the time, but it's difficult to sell for me in my own mind,
And I think those are the ones that like really, really tear up somebody that writes them.
Mm-hmm.
They might stick with the reader for a while and sometimes years. Like I still remember reading Nancy Kress' Beggars in Spain when I was probably about 19. And I still think about that story.
Wow. I can see that. I can see my copy of that book from here.
Really? Well, and it's funny because I only read it once. And I mean, at the time, it was kind of one of those throwaway sci-fi things that you read. And yet my thoughts keep going back to it at least a few times a year ever since I read it.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think part of it was that whole, that human dilemma. We're always trying to improve things. And every improvement that we create brings with it the potential for not necessarily evil, but making things worse in the long run.
Additional problems, yeah.
And
solve one problem, you raise two more.
Exactly. And maybe that's like the hero's journey in a nutshell, or maybe that's why we enjoy reading fantasy and paranormal, is because it gives us a chance to delve into those kind of topics in a way that isn't as painful as if it's a story about real people that live in the now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Beggars in Spain is science fiction. I mean, it's not that far flung to begin with, and there is a series, I'm pretty sure.
And that's probably why it bothers me so much, is because when I read it at 19, that technology wasn't really around. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first test tube baby, Louise Brown, is the same age as me, so that'll tell you how old I am.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But that whole genetic ability we didn't have 20 years ago, but we do have it now.
Yeah. And
so, like, her book could happen. It could already be happening.
Yeah, that is a scary thought.
That's frightening.
Yeah.
Frightening thought.
I kind of have to laugh, or else it gets too scary. But
go back to the fantasy books where people have magic.
Right. I mean, though it's interesting too, because the book I was just writing, I explored some themes that were very close to me, especially me right now, because they were about skills and because there's a lot of the book is about learning to use magic, right? Okay, it was talking about magic, and I thought my characters ended up learning things about skills just in general, but how to master a skill that I've been thinking about for a long while, and I never really put into words. It's kind of interesting that it came out. I've only noticed it while I was editing the book. I didn't notice it. I didn't deliberately put that in there. But I felt like I like this actually has a real lesson to it. That's kind of cool. That's my feeling. It's like
your subconscious, when you're dictating, your subconscious is not as fettered as if you're trying to type.
Yeah, at least for a lot of people, I'd say that's probably true. Yeah, because talking comes so naturally.
It's just sort of more that stream of consciousness, and you don't self-edit the way that you do when your fingers are on a keyboard, because like you'll go back and delete or whatever as you're typing. But yeah, when you're dictating, it's just pure stream of consciousness, which is sometimes good and sometimes less good.
It's a mixed bag at times. It can be. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So as far as your your books go, what was your most recent work that came out? What's up with that?
So my most recent book came out on August 13th, and it's called The Soul Goblet, and it is book 7 in the Legend of the Fallen series, and I'm writing that with J.A. Kulikan, who she's a New York Times bestselling author of the Keeper of Dragons series.
Okay.
And this is going to be, I think it's 26 or 27 books, probably 26, because they're done in little trilogy chunks. So this basically is it's the first time I had ever written in first person. And I found that quite challenging because I'm used to writing in third person. And here I had to be the character. So I found the edits particularly brutal for this on a self-esteem perspective, because I found I really did invest a lot more in the character than maybe I do when I'm writing in third.
Okay. So more, the character was more you, so to speak.
Yeah, like I was the character as I was speaking and moving throughout the story. And so when I got the edits back, and they would say things like, this isn't how, or how did they word it? Something along the lines of, they were trying to get me less in her head and more like reacting to the world, because the way she was coming across was like a narcissist. And I'm like, oh
no.
And I mean, obviously the edits made the book much better and I understood what they were talking about, but there was still that 10% of me that was like, oh, she doesn't like me. My character's me.
Oh, yeah. That's a tough one. And I know I over-identify your characters, but I always identify with my characters a lot. My main characters, at least.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to.
Yeah. And that's why when somebody I actually had this happen in one of my writing groups where somebody said, like, no, I just hate your character. I'm like, oh, okay. You hate my main character. What am I supposed to do about that? I already wrote the book.
Yeah. And so maybe that person isn't a good person to take a critique from anymore.
Yeah. That's what I decided pretty quickly.
Yeah.
After that.
It's like, hey, it's not your cup of tea. That's great, but you need to leave now so that I don't cry.
Yeah, or I just need to go find someone who's actually give me stuff something I can use, basically.
Yeah.
Because I know that book's published now, and the characters get a lot of praise. I don't get a lot of. I've not moved a lot of copies for paid sales on that one, but the people who've read it seem to really enjoy that.
So then you got to wonder what was it about that character that really struck that person the wrong way? Maybe
it is interesting, right? Yeah, it's like okay, so there must have been some kind of bad reaction there.
Yeah. Well, and you often have really strong reactions to characters that either are basically like us or that remind us of somebody that we know in real life.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, because actually, I mean, let's not get too personal here, but there are certain people in my life, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to read a character like that. I wouldn't want that to be portrayed as a sympathetic person or in a flip case as somebody who's a bad guy, as a villain.
Oh, see, and now I'm thinking of one of my friends and I'm just like, oh yeah, I need to write a story about them because that would be awesome. But I can't let them know it's about them.
Yeah, that's one of those secrets you have to take with you to your grave, maybe.
Oh, it would be so amazing.
Yeah. So have you done that before? Have you written about people, basically framed a story around characters from real life or from other stories,
I would say that some characters end up reminding me of some of my friends or family, or like I'll take personality traits. But I've never written a book where I'm like, yep, that's Bob, and this is Bob's story, and he's going on an adventure. But now I really kind of want to, because I never even considered doing that, and I'm kind of excited. I could go a lot of places with that.
Yeah, I mean, the most I've done really is I've taken names occasionally, and I've actually not published this book, but I took names from it for one of my military science fiction kind of experiment. Mm-hmm. because I had a whole military unit, and I'm like, I'll just name characters. I came up with a bunch of different officer names, and mostly they're mashups of other authors' names or my friends' names.
That's awesome.
And it was kind of funny. So like, there's a lot of them that are just like, okay, this, and actually I've read whole books. I've read a whole series, like Matt Wallace. He had this Slinger series.
Okay.
And that, like, every character who's important, almost every character is named after somebody from his life or somebody who he knows. It's like, what? That's kind of weird. But I think it's kind of weird because I don't do it that way. But I really did enjoy those books. And I thought it actually kind of adds something to them. It makes them feel very
personal.
Personal. And honestly, strange in one of the better ways that I've encountered it. Because they're just like, okay, so that guy, that name belongs to this character. And because some of the people in the book are other authors or podcasters or people, like Alistair Stewart's a character in the book, and he owns Escape Artist podcast. And so I'm familiar with his work. And I'm like, okay, I've got to try to I'm trying to keep these two apart. I've also had Al on this show, and it's just
I'm
funny. It's like,
that's maybe like one of those like inside joke things, and maybe you're not supposed to keep
it kind of is. Sorry, what?
I was saying maybe that's the point, though, is it's an inside joke and you're not supposed to keep them apart.
Maybe.
Like maybe supposed to add that extra level?
Yeah, I suppose that's interesting. Yeah. What am I supposed to... It's hard to read a book like that, though, when just so many of those names mean something to me, but they're all just in different context.
Well, now you'll have to read it again, pretending that it is them.
Oh, absolutely. Now that'd be funny.
That would be, right?
Yeah, especially because like most of the characters in the books are actually that series are like hardcore athletes in a death sport, like a blood sport, and then you've got these like kind of nice geeky people who are basically fine, whatever. They seem like good folks, and then they're just murdering people.
And yet, those are really the ones you should watch for. My rule of thumb, I have lived by it since I was a teenager, is never make the nice people mad because they're going to unleash a level of crazy that the mean people just don't have.
I found that to be true as well. It's not good to... Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, it is so much more frightening when the nice person loses it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can remember some specific moments. And they still scare me, honestly.
Right?
Especially because it was my fault, like in those moments. I've got myself into this position, and it was no good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's never good.
Well, anyway, I probably enough personal delve in that regard, but as far as I guess I forgot to prime you for this question, but. Do you have chances to read? I know you have a family, you got a busy life, and you write quite fast, quite a lot of books. But do you have time to read lately?
I do, actually. I think I'm probably over-teched or something, but I also will listen to audiobooks in the car if I'm either not feeling like dictating that day or if I'm between projects. I will also listen to podcasts and audiobooks while I'm exercising. And then usually I read for about half an hour before bed. I'm a really fast reader, though. I always tell people that I'm not smart, but I got through university because I just could read like 3 times the books everybody else did. So, I mean, I think I've done my Goodreads challenge for the year. I think I had wanted to do 70 and I'm at 80 or something.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So I guess I've done about 80 books this year.
Any of those standing out to you right now as far as books you might want to recommend to people?
Oh, there were so many that were good. I guess it just...
Well, just pick one or two.
Well, I would say, I think the last time I was on, I might have mentioned Jonathan Stroud's Screaming Staircase, the Lockwood & Co. series. And that one still stands out to me because I listened to it as an audiobook and it felt like I was listening to like a campfire ghost story. So it had a really cool, spooky thing to it. I really also enjoyed The Raven Boys by audiobook recently. And that one is by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm not sure if I said it right. And it had kind of a King Arthur feel to it, even though it's modern day.
Oh, interesting.
And I kept waiting for that because they're looking for like this ancient Welsh king along a ley line in the Carolinas or something.
Sounds like you could run into a, yeah.
Right? and I don't think, because I am one of those people that might actually read the ending, but don't judge me. So I did Google the next 4 books in the series, and there's no King Arthur anywhere, but I'll probably still go ahead and read it.
You couldn't wait to find out, though.
No, I just couldn't. Yeah, there's just, in terms of magic, I read a book by, I think she's from the South, Jean G. Fellers, and she wrote the Appalachian Elemental series, and I've read both of those, and those are really interesting because she plays with elemental magic and Celtic mythology, Aboriginal mythology, and also really sort of the gender creative side of things. So it's less about male and female, and the elementals don't have a gender. So I just thought that those were really well done, and I haven't really read anything like that. So they were quite unique.
Oh yeah, that sounds really interesting. Actually, I have to think about checking some of that stuff out. As for this week, for me, I don't think I actually have any books I've been reading lately, except for my own book, because I've been editing up to my eyeballs in edits. And honestly, I spent all my reading time this past week reading my own book. So, but luckily we're near the end of the show, so we can start talking about that instead. So where can people find your work?
These are probably the good ones.
Sorry, what?
I was going to say those are probably the ones that really stuck with me the most. So.
Oh, great! Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Where can people find your work, Heather?
I have all of my stuff under the same initials, so you can find me under H M Gooden author on Facebook, Amazon, Twitter, Instagram. Where else am I? BookBub.
Okay.
I think those are the big ones.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. I had a wonderful time.
Well, it's been great. And as for this show, you can find us at mentalcellularpublications.com. You can read my books on Amazon.com, including the new Demon Scroll, which is the book I just mentioned being up my eyeballs editing. By the magic of of time travel and the internet, you can read it right now on Amazon.com. And so check that out. It's my newest release. It's a big old epic fantasy with a lot of lessons about how to become a better mage, but also a better person, I guess. I should hope.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. We should hope, right? But thanks for listening, everybody, and have a good week.
That tears it.